My name is Mikayla Eshbach, and I'm here to share with you today about my Capstone project on the development of a service learning implementation guide, as well as an articulation pathway for OTAs to accomplish their occupational therapy doctorate. So what is my capstone project? I had a dual topic capstone that looked at service learning and served the occupational therapy department as a whole here at Western Michigan University. The difference between these two projects is for the service learning project, I had the site mentor of Sean Tenney, who is the director of the Office of Community Engaged Learning. Whereas for the articulation pathway, I also served Western Michigan's occupational therapy department with the site mentor of Kim Ganseport, who is program coordinator for the Sammons and Ryder Occupational Therapy Assistant Program, as well as a faculty specialist here at Western and is a COTA herself. I should clarify, a COTA is an occupational therapy assistant who is certified. So to summarize, service learning is a beneficial tool. We'll look at the needs assessment as well as the service learning implementation guide that was tailored to the occupational therapy department and what that pilot service learning module looked like. The occupational therapy to occupational therapy assistant to occupational therapy doctorate articulation pathway aim to streamline the curriculum by recognizing the education experience of the occupational therapy assistants, as well as reducing redundancy and enhancing flexibility amongst the students' schedules and within their courses they are taking. The articulation pathway aligns with the Accreditation Council of Occupational Therapy Education and the standards they set forth for 2023 to be implemented in 2025. So let's look at the literature that supports service learning. Service learning is a form of community engagement that would be categorized with volunteering or community service. However, it is different based on the fact that it is mutually beneficial for both the students and the partners. The students gain an opportunity to serve their community and then walk away and implement a time of reflection where they can reflect on the personal and professional skills they have developed. I'll allow for course content application in a real-world hands-on experience, as well as develop familiarity with different populations that they might serve in a clinical format in the future. In this process, reflection is used as a tool in all three settings of individual group format as well as one-on-one format. This can also be used here at Western in conjunction with career services to further enhance how this can be applied to their resume. This is all outlined in the implementation guide for the OT department. The community partner then is also benefiting from this relationship as they are having a need met by the students who are coming to help serve and fill that gap that they have. What is the needs of this program? So in conversation with Sean Tenney, we identified some needs within the Office of Community Engaged Learning, formerly known as the Office of Service Learning. This office identified that they were in need of increased marketing among faculty and students to increase the awareness of the resources available on their webpage, such as their resource guide, which outlines the process and some pitfalls, as well as benefits and other commonly asked questions about service learning. There's also a deficit in Grand Rapids for service learning partners, as this is a satellite campus for Western. However, the occupational therapy program houses a cohort here as well. So then looking at developing those partners will be pursued in the objectives later. The student demand is evident as the students drive what is funded and also what is encouraged. So there was a need identified to increase student awareness and the demand for service learning. So as I mentioned, the objectives that were achieved during my capstone was course implementation, which included that reflection component I mentioned earlier through group reflection, individual reflection, as well as case study application. This was all completed in the pilot program in 2 different courses in the OTD program with students who were in their first year prior to completing their fieldwork. So they were able to gain hands-on experience in a 1-hour format. Granted, this was very condensed before going out on their fieldwork, in which they noted that it was very beneficial for them. This also, following that completion of that piloted program, led to the completion of the service learning implementation guide, where the idea is to encourage the use of semester-long service learning opportunities throughout the program. Ideally for those first-year students so they can get hands-on experience with potential clients in the community and serving our community as well. This guide also provided standardization in repeatability and reliability within this process in order to ensure that some of those kinks and bumps along the way were smoothed out. The implication of this capstone aimed to increase awareness among faculty and students of the benefits, as this was used prior in throughout the occupational therapy doctorate program. However, this aimed to provide a standardized process in which it could be implemented in those semester-long formats. It also aimed to promote community engagement in the community and to ultimately benefit the community served. As we develop these personal and professional skills in through reflection, we are only bettering ourselves as occupational therapy practitioners. Let's switch our hats now from occupational therapy service learning guide implementation or implementation guide to the occupational therapy assistant to occupational therapy doctorate articulation pathway. So in the needs assessment, it was identified that there is a gap or few programs offered or available to occupational therapy assistants to complete their occupational therapy doctorate. The ones that exist provide, or the ones that I'm aware of that exist, provide an occupational therapy bridge program through the lens that they already know what basic things are, like activities of daily living. However, they do not eliminate any of the courses and or provide some of the flexibility that might be found within that for students to work and continue to practice as occupational therapy assistants throughout the program. So because of the occupational therapy assistant bachelor degree here at Western Michigan University, as well as the recent completion of the occupational therapy assistant bachelor degree completion program, there is a higher demand for this articulation pathway. The objectives accomplished throughout my capstone included that articulation pathway in which I compared ACOTE standards from 2018 to 2025 or 2023 that are implemented in 2025, and then looking at the 2023 standards for the OTA Associates program, the OTA Bachelorette program, and then the OTD program. In reviewing those standards, I found the standards that were completely redundant word for word and highlighted those and made note into which courses they were implemented. In reviewing the courses that they were implemented, we were able to identify, Kim and I were able to identify which courses could be modified to provide this phase one of the articulation pathway. This aims to remove some of that redundancy in the courses where other standards are being met in other courses while still meeting those ACOTE standards. So this also led to the question of how do students admit to this articulation pathway or process? And so by surveying recent students who were admitted into the OTD program that would be benefiting from this pathway, we were able to gain insights into how they wish the process was different. And they had essentially requested for an internal application in which the admissions into the program and interviewing process would use their internal access to things like their prereqs and grades completed in the application process rather than having them complete that through an external party. This is going to be implemented in a similar way to the occupational therapy assistant bachelor's degree is, in which that it will be presented to the students, the occupational therapy assistant students prior to the completion of their program if they are interested in pursuing their occupational therapy doctorate. What were the implications for this capstone? This capstone increased access to career development for occupational therapy assistants to complete their occupational therapy doctorate. It also increases the diversibility or the application of the occupational therapy program as they are able to accept students with an occupational therapy assistant background, which can then contribute to the classroom content as well as their profession and having experience in that role. So to conclude, the results of this project included many takeaways and many deliverables, some of note being the service learning implementation guide for the occupational therapy department, as well as the articulation pathway for an occupational therapy assistant to obtain their occupational therapy doctorate. This is in their early phases, so both could provide or benefit from further work to either develop a module to implement service learning in a semester-long format and or to continue the work of developing those different phases of the articulation pathway and or collaborating with other universities who have occupational therapy assistant programs who would then be able to collaborate and promote that work towards a bridge program. I had many lessons learned throughout this process, but the main one was to communicate and to listen to others throughout the process.